20 what? What's 20? Oh, twinning. I thought you said 20. My bad. Yeah. Any day I can twin with Derek's a good day. He's my guy. Everybody ready in the back?
Jump on you that you've done, pretty minimal stuff so far. That was kind of the plan, wasn't it? You didn't really, you weren't lying to us at the combine, right?
No. I mean,
Lied to us before, but not at the combine.
not intentionally, Sal. No, I was trying to, set expectations. We're, this year's cap, next year's cap tight, just what we've starting back with coming off the cap going down with COVID. We're trying to work our way out so that we don't have just a tear down. And you see that happen from a team here or there that, just like, man, we can't do anymore. We gotta get rid of some of these huge salaries, and the only way to do it is either try to kick it further down the road, making it harder, or start trading, releasing, and taking those hits. So we're trying not to do that. We want to be competitive every single year. And so some years you're just not going to be able to go add a big ticket item every year. I know that's, it's sexy to go do that. And listen, we want as many talented players as we can get, but we got to be fiscally responsible, because if not, it will pile up and you'll be seeing some of our, the jerseys that people are wearing, those players ain't going to be with us. And so that's where we're at. We're trying to be smart, find players that fit, and we'll continue looking. I know I'm here today, but we're not necessarily done. There's still a lot of free agents out there. We're having conversations, and there could even be more cap casualties as guys are added. So our scouts have done a great job, and really appreciate what they've done. The coaches kind of helping us formulate, just like our draft board, our free agency board, and kind of targets, and so that's the moves we've made to this point, and we'll continue looking.
How would you characterize the ability to get Jordan Poyer back?
Yeah, excited to get Jordan back. You know all along, these are never easy when the business parts gets in the way of trying to find, us not extending Jordan, early is just more what can we do in the cap, and we didn't know the cap till after the season, and obviously we lost Tremaine, and just we don't want to lose any of the guys that we do, but was very excited, that we were able to get Jordan back selfishly. At the same time, if Jordan had hit some big deal, we would have been, such as Tremaine did, would have been very happy for him. We want, all our people that do leave to, hit it big, but glad to get him back and repair him with Micah, and he's a leader, he's a dog, he brings an edge to our defense, and he can take the ball away.
Do you think it's a little bit of an upset? Were you thinking there was a decent chance on January 15th when the season ended? Were you thinking you might be losing this guy?
I'm an eternal optimist, Mark. So until I hear they're gone, I'm going to be looking at ways to get the guys back that belong here and that we want on this team. But, you have to wait and see how the economics play out. And I give Drew and Jordan, Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, a lot of credit. Constant communication all the way back to, last spring through getting this thing, solidified yesterday.
Brandon, losing Tremaine, when you look at that middle linebacker position, is there more of an emphasis on looking at that position in the draft, or do you think it's going to be more of an internal competition, or maybe bringing someone in from free agency to fill that spot?
Yeah, sometimes your answer is on your roster, and so we think, Tyrell, getting Dotson back on a 1 year, him. Obviously, we had the 2 draft picks last year, and Bernard and Spector. They've been in our program a year. They're going to be a lot more prepared for the pro game and our defensive system going in. So, it's a competition, and we'll continue to look, whether that's cap casualties, free agencies. If there's a player in the draft, it'll be competition. We're not going to, state now or probably next month or in 2 months, this person's the starter. They're all going to get a chance to compete, and best man wins.
Have you, just to follow up on that, have you guys talked about it all, possibly moving Milano to middle linebacker, or is
No, we'll keep Matt where he's at. We think he's really good. He's a matchup linebacker, and glad to get him extended, here and, adding 2 years, which holds him here in Buffalo for 4 years. So, no, ultimately, we'll leave Matt there, and we'll just let there be competition, for that middle linebacker.
Did you assume that Tremaine's number was gonna get probably to where it ended up? Or did you kind of know going in that you weren't gonna do that?
Well, you never know what you're going to do. We stayed in touch with his representatives as well, but we thought he, was the top linebacker in free agency, and so all it takes is one team, and I don't know how many were bidding for him before he landed in Chicago. I'm not privy to that, but it's not a surprise that he got up there. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's 25 years old, has already got 5 years of experience. We love him, didn't want to lose him, but again, it's a puzzle piece, and unfortunately just can't keep them all.
How big of a blow was this to lose Tremaine, and how much does this experience factor in how you go about in the future with dealing with Gabe Davis and Ed Oliver?
Well, I mean, you want to keep them all, Mookie. You just you can't, and you got to pick your spots and do your best, with you can. But we're always wanting to, again, draft, develop, sign our own. Sometimes, there's big ticket items that you just can't. You can only pay so many guys, and so when you're talking about a guy that just hit, an 18 million APY, that's hard. If you're going to pay that, then you may say, all right, we're going to lose this guy, or we're going to need to move on from him. So you make decisions, and you do the best you can. You don't want to lose a guy like Tremaine, but no, guys like Gabe and Ed, we'll hope to continue here for longer than their rookie deals that they're currently on.
Brandon, what do you think about Deontay in terms of his fit and what you kind of envision for him in this offense?
I think Deontay, he fits what we call our 4 role, which is a guy who can play outside and play inside. We've seen him do both in New Orleans. This year, unfortunately, he got the injury, but he was a guy I thought the previous year really showed, some good stuff of stretching the field vertically and tracking the ball well, but also can catch an underneath ball, can run an option route from the inside, 9-stop route, where he's, running that corner off the ball and then hitting the stop. Quarterback hits him. So we think he's, I've mentioned Rack before. We think he's, when you got a guy who's a punt returner who plays receiver, those guys are generally pretty good rack players. And so, we followed him for a couple years, and we thought this was a good time to go after him.
Now, you talk about Rack, and that was something that you really emphasized on, going into last season. That really didn't materialize. So you think that bringing in, Hardy was more or less of that, getting a guy that could, run after the catch?
That's part of it, yeah. He's a guy that can do a lot. As I said, rack. He can also, he can hit it deep. He's a vertical threat, and if you've got a legit vertical threat, that can help open things up, for Gabe or Steph or Khalil, any of the other guys that are playing receiver. So I think he'll just be another piece that Dorsey can use however he wants, like I said, as an outside or an inside. And, Coach Smiley will have an opportunity to throw him back there in the return game with Naheem. Those guys will, have opportunities to do that as well.
Hey, Brandon, with the money you moved around earlier in the week, what kind of flexibility do you still have as the secondary market now opens, or even the trade market?
Yeah, I mean, not a lot. We're probably we're going to get we tendered Dane, but we're solidifying a deal for a 1 year that will lower, give him some guarantees, but lower his cap number for us from that 2.7, 2.8, wherever he was going to be on the tender. So when we get done with that and get Naheem's restructure turned in, I think we'll be 9-ish, give or take a little bit. I can't remember exactly where it's at, Ryan, but you got to remember, like, for example, last year, just your practice squad was like $3.5 million. So your draft picks go into this. So it's not like I have 9.5, 9 or 9.5 just sitting here. We still have to account for that. And then replacement cost, when guys get injured in season, you're generally holding, $4 or $5 million for that. we still have money. We just have to be smart. You know, if we spend too much of that, that means we're going to have to find more people to restructure. Again, not that I'm against it, but the more you do, then the bigger that avalanche gets, you know, years down the line.
Brandon, do you anticipate Isaiah McKenzie being on the roster past his roster vote?
You know, that's a good question. We're still sorting that out. Love Isaiah. He's been great for us. Yeah, we're talking internally about, you know, making sure we don't have too much duplicate, but, you know, I think we'll know here in the next couple of days.
Do you have an update on DeMar? I know you talked about him at DeMar Hamlin.
Yeah.
Just, you know, I know you talked about him at the combine, just wondering if there's been any update on his status and where he stands as far as a lineup roster goes.
Yeah, DeMar is, you know, he's back in town a little bit this week. He may have gone back to Pittsburgh by now, but had a great visit with him a couple days ago, and he's in great spirits. He's off the world tour that he and I laughed about of all the sporting events and everything else, but he's dialed in. You know, he definitely has every intention to play. He's got, I know of one more visit, but I think they'll get wrapped up by, you know, sometime in April as it stands now. You know, that could always change if he sees someone in April that says, hey, I want you to come back in May, but everything is checked out to this point, and so it's trending in the right direction, but we'll get him through all those, and then we'll make sure all of our medical people are hearing all those opinions on each visit and make sure that we're all on the same page of what it would look like. But we're rooting for him. He wants to do it, and we want to see him do it, and that's probably where it's at today.
And segueing to another thing, you saying you have 9-ish million perhaps, which is really unusual in some ways because usually you've been able to augment your roster in free agency and then address other needs in the draft per se to a certain degree. How does this really switch your philosophy going into April in some ways, knowing that you were unable to address some needs in free agency?
Yeah, well, you know, free agency's not over, and so you know, that's an ongoing thing. Sometimes you see guys that don't get something that they want, and they decide to just wait till after the draft because they're like, if I'm going to play for this number, I don't want to get drafted over and get stuck in a situation. So sometimes it drags into May. So we'll continue, and then again in May, sometimes guys do get drafted over and they get released or traded. So, you know, the main thing is that we're ready to go for training camp, and we'll continue to build this roster. We may not have everything answered now. I may be here after the last day of the draft, and you may say, Brandon, I still don't think you've answered position X, whatever that is. And, you know, I might not disagree with you, but we'll continue looking at it. So, yeah, I can't sit here and say, man, we're ready to play ball. Let's go to training camp. We'll continue to add pieces from now through the draft, and then we'll kind of see where we're at that point.
Where have you been in contact with Devin Singletary, and what is like shopping on the running back market for you?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to his reps just like everyone else, and probably leave it, you know, at that. But you know, we've talked to, you know, like anything, we monitor everything, Mookie, and every position. Even if you think we've got it filled, I promise you we're monitoring because you want to add competition and depth, and so yeah, we'll stay on that.
Brandon, what about the idea of, you know, Naheem and James that kind of have similar skill set? You've had Zach in the past, or Devin as from like a power back. Is that something that you feel you need to add to that group to have that versatile skill set?
We'll definitely add more depth. I mean, you're really talking about right now, you know, just a couple backs on the roster. So we'll continue to add there and look for, you know, different skill sets that you're alluding to. I hear what you're getting at. Yeah, we'll monitor that, and totally aware that we got a couple guys that are around 200. So yeah, we'll probably add somebody that's a little heavier than that at some point between, you know, now and training camp.
What would you like about McGovern?
Just steady. That's probably what I would say. Just a steady player. You know, he's firm. You know, he sets a firm pocket. We talk about some guys are very athletic, but they don't have the anchor, and they kind of get, you know, I think he's very steady, very sturdy. You know, I'm not going to say he's the sexiest guy out there, but he's he does it and he gets the job done. You know, we interviewed, Connor and I were talking about it earlier, we interviewed him at the, in Indy when he was coming out. And I remember part of that, I was looking through some of his college notes and my notes from his interview. It's funny when you kind of, revert back to those. But he's just a steady guy, gets the job done, really good in pass pro. You know, I think his best football is still ahead of him. He's very smart, aware, understands the game, and, you know, angles, and just I think he's got a grittiness, a toughness that we saw at Penn State. You know, we knew that coming out, and we really liked him coming out. And you know, I thought Dallas made a good picking him where they did.
Sorry, he said you guys saw him at left guard. Is that kind of spot?
Yeah, that's where right now we see him, you know, fitting into there. You know, but I'm sure if we needed him to move over, we could. He also brings center versatility, so it gives us another guy. You obviously got Mitch, Bates can do it, and then now Connor can do it as well. You know, we always preach as many guys that bring versatility. You know, that's another piece. You know, with signing him.
Brandon, with bringing in Kyle Allen, is part of that because Josh doesn't need a 35-year-old veteran mentor anymore, right? That's got to be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to spend whatever that guy would have cost. Is that part of the thinking there?
Yeah, we talked about that. It's a great question, Sal. We talked about that after the season, you know, whether that's, you know, bringing Case back or some of the other options. And we said, listen, if we get Case back, that's great. If we don't feel it's got to be a 30-some-year-old guy that Josh, he knows what he knows, he sees it. We wouldn't have shied away from it if the right person, you know, had worked out. But at the same time, it's not like it was 2, 3, 4 years ago with Josh. And, you know, Kyle was a guy that we brought in for a workout, and literally while he was showering, Carolina called and signed him to their team years back, and he ended up starting a decent amount of games there. And then when he was on his way out, Washington traded for him. We were checking into him at that point, like his skill set, did some good things. I think he started close to 20 games. I don't remember, it was in the high teens. And so he brings some experience with that. He's athletic. He can make all the throws. And, the thing I talked about with Kyle, some of the downfalls that he's had is just, it's funny, a little bit like Josh, when he tries to do too much. And when he's playing within the system, spitting the ball out, he's won some games as a starter. So good to add him to the mix.
Already chirping about Oak Hill, he wants to get, he said it's a good stick, too, so that might be a little challenge.
It might be. I got work to do for sure.
When you mentioned that, it kind of was that conversation when the season ended about bringing in a backup quarterback with maybe not needing as much experience. Did Josh bring that up first, or did you, or how did that conversation, who suggested it?
No, that was myself, Sean, Dorsey, and Joe Brady. Yeah, more of that than just our feeling of where Josh was and in his level and understanding of the game. And again, you wouldn't shy away from it if there was, a 30-some-year-old veteran that was started, or played a lot, and you felt could bring another set of eyes. You never turn. I mean, Case did a great job last year, and we would have definitely been open to bringing Case back, but he got a good opportunity in his hometown, and so wishing Case well.
What was it like seeing some of the moves that your divisional counterparts have made and are rumored to about to make, with Jets and some quarterback? How difficult was it to resist freeing up a little bit more salary cap space to keep up with the arms race in some ways, and how do you view that given how this division seems to be tightening now?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think the last couple of years it's really been tightening up, and it's not been easy. I mean, even 2 years ago we were down to New England till late in the season. They led it more than we did, I think, but or at least as much before we overtook them at the end of the year. And yeah, Miami, had a heck of a year last year. They hit a little bit of a skid when the quarterback got hurt, but now the Jets, I mean, their defense was very salty last year, created some issues for us up there at New York and even here. I mean, it was, it's not like we were, moving the ball up and down, on either of those games. But, you understand every year people they're gonna come after you, especially if you've won it. We've won the division 3 years in a row, and it's gonna get harder and harder every year, and we're gonna do our best. We feel we got some good continuity, and we're just trying to add the right pieces, but we understand winning the East, this may be the toughest year yet to try and pull that off.
You mentioned Brandon Jordan before you're back, and I think at the combine it was mentioned about Benford converting to safety. Now that you have Poyer back, you bring Dane back. What are you looking at that cornerback number 2 with Benford, Elam, and now Dane Jackson?
Yeah, well, it'll be what we talk about all the time, Mookie, competition, and we'll put them in the best spots. Yeah, as we were talking at the combine, we think Christian's skill set would allow him to move to safety if that's the best place for him, but we'll see once we, kind of get through the draft and through the rest of this free agency, and where can we best get our best players on the field, and if his best place is at corner, we'll leave him there. If we think his best place in the future is at safety, then maybe we would do that now behind Micah and Jordan and start that transition.
I know with Jordan, Jordan, you mentioned that you're always optimistic, just given your nature, but with the way the safety market was playing out, with what he was asking, when did it crystallize that, yes, he will be back here?
Really, yesterday. The night before, we had some conversations, with Drew, but I wouldn't say I went to bed going, we're going to have Jordan. I thought that night it was probably 50-50. There was a chance, probably a better chance than 2 days ago, but still a ways to go to find a spot that worked for him and worked for us. And, honestly, when you guys hear it, I think I knew like 2 minutes before NFL Network knew. So it was trending that way, but we were still working through things. And again, I might have known 2 minutes before y'all did if y'all were watching on TV or on NFL Network. Or on social media.
You were?
Yeah, you were.
I know a couple months ago you mentioned some of the difficult circumstances for Spencer Brown this past year.
Yep.
He had to battle through. With that said, are you confident in him as your starting right tackle, or is that a spot that you would like to, add someone to compete with him to win that job?
I think you answered it twice. I think first, very confident in Spencer. I think he's trending up. I think his, the back really set him back last offseason, and he missed a lot of valuable reps for a player who, again, coming off a year where he didn't play in college, comes in, plays as a rookie some. We didn't start him out. And that was going to be his first big offseason to really learn the pro game and everything. And then he's got to have this setback and have surgery and miss the whole offseason and didn't even start. So he's still minus a lot of reps. With that said, though, I'll repeat it, I think he did really well down the stretch for us. And we are very confident that he's going to solidify that. With that said, though, I'm looking for competition everywhere. So if we find the right player, either in this free agency or in the draft, we would add him. And I know Spencer loves competition. He would be ready for that to whoever we add.
I asked Coach McDermott at the combine about OBJ, and just give us what you thought about his workout last week down in Arizona.
Yeah, we sent one of our scouts, Matt Bazergan, went out there, and so without getting too in details, he thought he did a good job. Showed, obviously, you see his hands if you've seen some of the video, that he still can pluck that thing one-handed. And I think he's, like anything, he's probably a little rusty. He hasn't played football, so it'll take him some time to work back in. But he's a heck of a talent, and we're always going to be doing our due diligence. And if somebody's working out, if we can get somebody there, we'll take a look.
So Deontay, in addition to him, he wouldn't take you out of pursuit of somebody else in that spot?
No, we'll kind of the same I said on the Spencer Brown. Right now, I'm trying to add as much depth and competition. Probably the 2 words I would say is my goal. Again, until we get to St. John. Not that I wouldn't add after with St. John Fisher, but the goal there is to make us as deep and as competitive as possible by the time we get to there.
What are some of the elements you think that will make Ken Dorsey better here too?
like anything, you were probably a better writer year 2 than you were year 1, Mookie. I didn't read your year 1 stuff, but I would like to think I'm a better GM. Some probably disagree, but years 3, 4, and 5 down the line than I was year 1. I can tell you some things that I was like, why would I even think that way, or why would I do that? So I think naturally, Ken, it's hard. It's a grind. You play a game, you coach a game, and then you come in, you watch the film, and then you meet with our scouts and hear the advance report from the next team, and then you basically are restarting. It's hard to slow down, decompress, take a deep breath. I think, Ken has been very open and, did a lot of good things. I think, other than quarterback itself and maybe the head coach, it's probably the most criticized position, once you get in. It seems like defensive coordinators get a lot less grief than offensive coordinators around the league, not in Buffalo, but just people are always second-guessing that position. I mean, we still did a lot of good things offensively, in the totality of our season. People remember we were a little off down the stretch, but if you really added up a lot of things, they were still very good. And, Ken's a pro. He's his own worst critic like Josh, and he wants to grow and get better. And I think just year 2, knowing what it's like and working with his staff as the head guy, communication and knowing who to rely on for red zone stuff and the run game stuff and how he's going to give the game plan to Josh and Joe Brady, and just all that should be easier. It's a little bit drinking out of a fire hose year 1 anytime you step into one of these bigger positions.
Hardy ran 4.35, I think, coming out. But, when you watch his highlights, he plays to that speed, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
He's not.
I couldn't have, to be honest with you, I wouldn't have even, until we looked at Rizzi, wouldn't have known what he tested, but because small school, not highly sought after, but when you just turn on the tape, you can feel speed, and he's got it. He played against us a couple years ago, Thanksgiving, in that game, but he's got juice. You feel it, and it's one of those guys. Some guys, they're fast off the line mark, and then they kind of top out. They get to 12, 14, 15 yards, and they're not. He's one of those guys that's still building up speed, well past, 14, 15 yards.
The last time we talked, the Leslie news was still super new. Where are you guys at in that process of figuring out what makes sense? And is that something you have to talk to potential free agents about? Like, are they curious about it?
No, we haven't really. That hasn't come up, but we would openly discuss it. But to this point, it hasn't. No, here's what I would say. I don't expect us, at this point, to bring in anyone from the outside. I think we're planning to do everything internally, and ultimately, that's Sean's side of the ball, so he'll head that up. That's probably, the most detail I would go into it at this point.
What's it gonna mean to have both George Blair and Micah Hyde both healthy going into the offseason?
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I think, again, I wasn't here in the 60s and 70s or 80s, but I think they're the best safety duo that this franchise has had. And if they're not, I'd love to hear who's better than those guys. And beyond their skill set, I mean, just pillars of the community, great leaders. They bring it all. You talk about, we look for guys with intangibles. I could sit here for the next hour and talk about all the great things Mike Hyde and Jordan Poyer are as people, and when you get a chance to hold on to a Poyer for another year, and these two together for another year, you don't take it for granted.
How helpful has Von GMer Miller has been to you this free agency?
You love Vaughn. You love his input. He's been great. We had a good time at the combine. I think it was good for him to see some of the behind the scenes, whether it's talking to agents or talking to some various personnel around the league. And so no, Vaughn's been great, and he's doing his rehab, and he knows one day he wants to venture that. We got to keep him on the field first, though.
Just to clarify, when you said Sean will kind of lead the defensive side, you're not ready to say yet he'll be calling the plays?
No, no, there's no reason to do that, even from a competitive standpoint. I don't, if Sean wants to say what he's going to do, I'll let him do that, but I I don't think there's any reason for us to name a play caller at this point.
Hey, Brandon, last week you guys were one of about 25 teams who proposed no cuts, just a one-cut camp.
Yeah.
What do you guys like about that? And if teams against it, why would they?
You know, I don't know a great reason why you'd be against it. I think there's enough of us GMs that less and less players are playing because you're up to a 17-game season. So, you know, you're trying to get the right reps in preseason, but you also want to go to that first game as healthy as possible. And so you're seeing scrimmages and other things. And sometimes in that third preseason game, you're trying to limit how many starters you put out there. And so these cut downs, when you're cutting it down to, you know, 85 and 80 going into that third preseason game, you've already got guys that are injured, maybe that are backups that you would want to play in that game. So you start trying to figure out, man, do I really want to put this starter out there because I don't have another player to? So I think it's a smart move by the league. You know, ultimately the product is better when you have, you know, when all teams have their legit starters out there week one. And so I would be surprised if it doesn't pass. I don't have, you know, I'm not aware of any great reason to not do it.
Brandon, now that you brought Cam Lewis back, is he a cornerback or safety?
You know, Cam's one of those versatile pieces that he can play. He can play nickel. I would say his best position today is a backup nickel for nickel, but Taryn's obviously the starter. He can play safety, and I would say position 3 he has enough of a skill set to compete as an outside corner. But I would say nickel 1, safety 2, outside corner 3.
Understanding you want to bring in competition all over, are there specific positions you would like to address before the draft still? Like areas you're like, I'd like to add here, anything like that?
I don't know that. I mean, I'm really looking everywhere. I mean, we got to build this thing up to be able to go to camp. So, you know, we're kind of monitoring the positions that are still heavy, and we think we can get some good value on. Really, what we're trying to do is sign guys that we think, you know, we necessarily don't want to have to go into the draft and like, man, I've got to get this position if we can help. Maybe we draft over. Maybe it's a backup player now. That we draft over, but someone that we can at least say this person could compete for a top backup job or potentially a starting role. All right, thank you.